Hello and welcome to This Is Us. I'm Becca King-Reed. This week we're coming to you from Freedom, California and the home of K-Pig Studios. K-Pig has live DJs on the air playing a unique blend of music that has made them one of the top stations in the region. And they do it all from a tiny space inside this former motel. As they like to say, it's pure pork goodness. Along with the keepers of the pigsty, you'll meet one of the most talented singers ever to emerge from the Bay Area, the incomparable opera star and businesswoman, Irene Dallas. The man who helped to launch an industry when he invented the video game Pong, and an architect who has spent more than 3 decades recreating the city of San Francisco in toothpicks. We've got a lot of great stories to share, and it all starts now.
This is us.
Welcome back. We're inside the swine-filled studios of K-Pig, and joining me is the music director here and the DJ on the air right now, Ralph Anybody. Thank you, Ralph, for inviting us in.
I'm happy to be here. The door's not locked, so everybody comes in.
Anyone can just
We have the
walk
window
in.
is usually open because we call it the walk-up window, and people come up and make requests.
Do
Hey.
they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. It used to like the old days when they would have a glass radio station downtown and people
Yeah.
could see the DJs.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got the secret
We got the window. We're kind of hidden in plain sight, though. People always have trouble finding the building to begin with.
I did.
So there you go. I did too the very first time. So.
Well, even though you
Anyway.
can't recognize the building, you can recognize the music. And it
Yes.
is instantly recognizable, but it's very hard to convey what you're hearing to anyone else. How do you describe the music?
I describe it as a little bit of everything and a whole lot of comedy mixed in with it. You know, it's blues, it's rock, classic rock, old rock, new rock, bluegrass. We just kind of paint our little musical pictures, and people really do appreciate them, and they tune in
How are you
everywhere.
doing that? Are you choosing, do you have this in your head? You have a list? How do you pick, and how do you know you're not playing something the other guy just played?
Well, a lot of the music is in our computer database here, and we have vinyl. We play records still. That's, you know,
God.
most commercial radio stations, records, you know, but most of it is in a computer database, and if you click on it and you really trust the computer to be honest and truthful, which sometimes it's wrong, but it will tell you the last time a song was played, so that if you're paying attention, you can go, oh, I won't play that because someone just played that.
So when you come in to start your show, someone hasn't handed you a list.
No.
You are picking the music as you
No,
go.
every live person here is picking the music as you go, stream of consciousness.
Wow. So in
seat of the
addition to
pants,
being
and-
great technicians, technically, they're also really good at
Yes,
music.
everyone
They're
here is
really
very
knowledgeable.
artistic, and everyone really is really knowledgeable about music of every genre. I mean, some people are more knowledgeable about the blues side of it, and others about the Americana side, you know, and I like it all. So, and it's tricky. And in the mornings, when you're on in the morning, the tricky thing is also you have to play music that isn't too scream and rock and roll, you know, because we have that and I can rock with the best of them, but sometimes in the morning you play something that's a little too up, you know, and people are, oh man, I'm still trying to wake up, they call you. And then if you play stuff that's too mellow, then they, oh, I'm trying to wake up and you're putting me back to sleep.
Hard
It's
to
like,
please everyone.
so you can't please everyone, but you gotta find the nice mix of, you know, not too, you know, at 6 in the
But not
morning,
too sleepy.
and not too like, you know, put you, please just kill me now. No, kind of a thing.
Well, thank you so much for letting
Sure.
us take a peek. I know you have work to do, and we'll let you get back to that.
Such as it is, work, yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll meet Radio Hall of Famer Lori Roberts. But first, from the silly to the sublime. She calls herself just another prune picker from San Jose, but at the Metropolitan Opera, they called her a star. Meet Irene Dallas. When the curtain goes up at the magnificent California Theater, it is thanks largely to one of this area's greatest talents, the General Director for Opera San Jose, the incomparable Miss Irene Dallas.
My father, during my childhood, had money only for music and books, and he insisted that each one of his 5 children took music lessons. They had on an instrument of their choice. My choice was music. It was piano. My first teacher was my own sister, who was 15 years older than I. And my father's idea of a nice evening at home would have his 5 children entertain him. We didn't have TVs then. So no, music played a big role in our household.
Born in San Jose and raised on Delmas Avenue, Dallas has fond memories of growing up in the Santa Clara Valley.
I want you to know it was lovely. There were so many orchards, you know, we had fruit orchards all over. It was a beautiful valley. When I was here, I was, you know, I was born in 1925, there's no secret. So I was brought up during the Depression years. And it was a town. It was a friendly town. And there's a lot of hustle and bustle down on First Street. First Street was a real downtown.
Dallas would go on to graduate from San Jose State and earn her music degree with a double major in voice and piano. Singing had always been secondary. Her career path had already been decided by her father. His daughter was to become a music teacher. However, with the financial help of her older sister Marge, Dallas went to New York and earned a master's degree from Columbia University. The young musician's talent was simply undeniable, and she was honored with a Fulbright Award in 1951 to study voice in Milan. Luck, timing, and an overriding brilliance have always been a part of the Dallas saga. She sang leading roles with Oldenburg Opera for 2 years and 2 more years with the Berlin Opera. However, it was the legendary Sir Rudolph Bing who first recognized her unique gifts.
Rudolph Bing of the Metropolitan Opera heard me sing in Milano 4 years before he hired me. He heard me when I was still a student.
What followed was a 20-year career at the Met, singing some of the most coveted roles in opera and performing with some of the most talented people in the world.
I had the good fortune to be on stage with most of the greatest singers of my time when they made their debut at the Metropolitan. I was the Brangäne to Birgit Nilsson's Isolde, for instance. I was there for Leontine Price and Franco Corelli when they made their debuts in Il Trovatore. I was the Azucena. When Placido Domingo had his first performance at the Met in, what was it, Adriana Lecouvreur, I was Princess de Bouillon.
Dallas returned to her hometown in 1977, where she served as a full professor of music following an appointment by the president of San Jose State University. Within 7 years, the opera program at State produced such a large number of career entry-level performers that Miss Dallas was able to establish a professional regional company, Opera San Jose. What started as the San Jose State University Opera Workshop eventually became Opera San Jose, with extraordinary volunteer help from Friends of the Opera. Initially, they performed at the Montgomery Theater. However, following the restoration of the California Theater, the company began performing in a new home in 2004. Along the way, Dallas has created artist-in-residence programs that provide free housing for the performers by purchasing apartment buildings in San Jose. In turn, those musicians are involved in a number of local outreach programs like Opera in a Box that introduce school children to opera.
2 singers go to a school with one of our coach pianists, and they have 15 sessions in the school. After 15 sessions, the whole class, or 4 classes combined, it's up to the principal to decide how many will be involved, put on their own opera. They write the story, they write the libretto, our people choose the music, our people stage it. The students make their costumes, they make their props, they make their sets, and they put on their own little opera. And I attend them, and I have to tell you, I still, when those children come out and take their final bows, I can't help it. I tear up. They are so proud of themselves. And I am so grateful they know about something called opera.
She has referred to herself as a prune picker from San Jose. But because of talent, drive, and ability, over the course of her singing career, she has performed in every major opera house from Naples to San Francisco. Irene Dallas has starred in Verdi, Wagner, and Richard Strauss. but her greatest role has been keeping opera flourishing in her own hometown. Welcome back to K-Pig Radio Studios. I'm here with Hall of Fame DJ Lori Roberts.
Hi, Becca.
Hi, thanks for letting us come in and bother you while you're on the radio.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Welcome to the Sty. Isn't it wonderful?
It is unique.
People come from all over the country and all over the world, indeed, just to see this.
Really?
Yeah, if they're coming to the Monterey Peninsula or even San Francisco, they'll make the drive down here.
To visit you personally.
Just to go, and it looks just like what I thought it would. You know, just because they picture it in their mind. Indeed, the first time I walked in here after I've been a listener for 20 years, and I was like, this is wonderful. This looks just like what I thought it was going to look like.
Now that's, I think, the interesting thing about the listeners of K-Pig is that they're really connected.
This is such a tight community, and people feel that this station is truly their own, and which I love about that. This is not, I mean, you can't push a button and get another K-Pig. And people are passionate, and there's also, I mean, there's nobody that does what we do, really, in this area, certainly. And we have, like I'm sure you've mentioned, thousands of streamers worldwide that listen for us, and because it's just a very unique place.
Now, you were the first radio station to stream live. That's really a progressive
95.
move.
Yeah, extremely. And to this day, our stream is a really popular item, and it's commercial free. It's a really cool thing.
That is a really successful thing. And speaking of success, K-Pig is one of either the number 1, 2, or 3 radio station at all times, which is very powerful in this market.
Yeah.
What do you think is the secret of that success?
I think it's the uniqueness. Not only just the uniqueness of the music, because we play everybody from the Stones or the Eagles to Lyle Lovett to Steve Miller to Bonnie Raitt to Professor Longhair. I mean, we cover the whole gamut of everything musical, truly. But then the sense of community. You know, people call up and go, "Hey, Lori, there's an accident on Highway 1." You know, and we'll get the word out about that because, you know, I mean, or you know, "Oh my gosh, there's a dog running on the freeway," and we'll put the word out about that. So they just know they can call here, get a person on the air, and more than likely get the music that they want to play.
Well, I will let you get back to playing that music. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today.
Thank you, Becca. I sure do appreciate you coming down to the pig.
Well, we'll be back in a minute with more swine information. But first, John Gregg profiles a very famous electrical engineer, Alan Alcorn. He's the guy who invented Pong.
It's a Saturday afternoon at the Tech Museum of Innovation in downtown San Jose. Middle school students are being mentored by volunteers from the tech community. Over in the corner, an introduction to soldering class is being taught by a local legend of electrical engineering.
I was always interested in how things work, taking them apart and putting them back together.
Pieces of Alan Alcorn's work can be found in the wallets of 200 million Americans, in the cars of 40 million. And in the early 1970s, his hand started the video game revolution by inventing the first video arcade game sensation, Pong.
It was fun playing people Pong in the beginning because I was the best Pong player in the world for a while.
Alan's start in electronics began when he was the same age as the kids he's helping today. He sent away for electronics kits and correspondence courses from RCA, and he began to explore how things work. Al's neighbor owned a TV repair shop down the street, and Al began to spend his afternoons there. By the time he graduated from Lowell High School, he was already a journeyman TV repairman. After graduation, Alan's TV skills led him to a job at Ampex.
And I met some of the people that invented videotape recording and learned a lot about the real world of engineering and all the little bureaucratic processes that are necessary to make something that you can produce and replicate more than one of.
He also made a friend at Ampex, Nolan Bushnell. Nolan left Ampex to get into coin-operated gaming. Soon he inquired if Alan was interested in becoming employee number 3 at his still fledgling company, Atari.
You know, our parents were not totally pleased quitting a good job at Ampex to go off and start a crazy company making video games, something that didn't exist. He offered me $1,000 a month salary and 10% of the stock, and I figured the stock would be worthless. And $1,000 a month was less than I was making at Ampex, but hey, it could be a flyer. You know, worst could happen, it'd go out of business, and I go back to work at Ampex.
Okay.
Atari had released one game already, 1971's Computer Space. Nolan Bushnell wanted a game that was the opposite of the garish pinball graphics, something so simple that any drunk at a bar could immediately understand it and start putting money into it. But Nolan wasn't talking about the original Pong unit that now sits in the Computer History Museum. Table tennis was just a project to get Alan's engineering up to speed. Alan worked for 3 months on Pong, not knowing it was just a test. But when the game was completed, something very funny happened. People were mesmerized by 2 lines and a square.
And I remember taking it home to my mother's house in San Francisco for Christmas. And my brother had 2 children, 2 young boys, and they got to play it at Christmas, the first kids that ever played Pong. And I remember Uncle Freddie looked at us, it'll never sell, it'll never sell. And I didn't know if it would or not. Why should it, you know?
A TV that was purchased for $75 at Walgreens was placed into a hardware store sheet metal box and then into a simple plywood chassis. A coin slot from a washing machine was screwed into the side. And to collect the coins, a kitchen bread pan. The first Pong was plugged in at Andy Capp's Tavern on El Camino in Sunnyvale. But after only 2 weeks, the game stopped working. Alan investigated and found the cause was an electrical short across the circuit board, because the bread pan was overflowing with quarters.
You know, there were 3 or 4 of us in an office, and all of a sudden, within 3 months, we create this thing called Pong, which is going to be the hit of the year, right? And we had no manufacturing capacity. We had no we were just 3 guys in a small office on Scott Boulevard over here in Santa Clara. And so we were just swamped. I mean, this success, I couldn't work on the next product because all I was trying to do was get Pongs out.
Atari hired some technicians, including a recent graduate named Steve Jobs, and ramped up production. The company was trying to keep up with demand and trying to stay ahead of the Pong clones that were coming onto the market. But the real revolution was Atari's decision to create a home version of Pong. Alan went to work creating a consumer video game console.
In 1976, 77, the consumer business got to be huge for Atari. And when you're in a business like that, you need lots of capital to finance inventory and construction. And so at this point, we needed outside money. We looked about going public, various ideas, and eventually we came to the deal, which was Warner Communications purchased us for a vast sum at the time of $30 million.
The new East Coast corporate culture was a shock to the Silicon Valley crazies. Nolan Bushnell left the company. Alan became a manager, but it wasn't his cup of tea. He developed a holographic gaming system called Cosmos, but Warner decided not to release it. That was the signal to Alan that it was time to move on, time to try to change the world again.
I really loved Atari. Atari was my baby, even though it was like 2,000 employees at the time.
Next up came the Catalyst Company, which was developed as an incubator for tech entrepreneurs. And here's where Alan's story gets interesting. The technology from the abandoned holograph game Cosmos, it was embedded into your Visa card. Display technology from asteroids, adapted by a company called ETAC, and used in the world's first working in-car navigation system. In the 90s, the Advanced Technology Division of Apple Computers brought Alan on board for a research project.
And we happened to put together an amazing team of people and had this wonderful little project that was involved with how do we put digital video in the computer as a data type, so you could send movies and pictures and stuff of yourself to other people.
The research was part of the global effort to develop the first MPEG standard for digital video. Alan worked with the French manufacturer Thomson to create the first MPEG video decoder chip.
The first MPEG decoder chip wound up in a Hughes satellite. I think it's something they call DirecTV now.
The generation of kids that grew up with the Atari system was now in the Silicon Valley workforce. Alan became a bit of a living legend in the Valley. He's a hero in video game development, asked to appear at conventions and to give advice to students. But he hasn't retired just yet. And Alan still has time to give back to the community.
I've been very fortunate just to be in the right place at the right time. I graduated from high school in San Francisco. I happened to go to a great high school, Lowell. I happened to be a great football player, which happened to get me onto the Cal Berkeley campus right in the middle of the 60s and all that revolution. And then I happened to get my first job out of college at Ampex. And then Nolan asked me to help start this company called Atari. So I've been very, very fortunate to be in the right place. I mean, being in Silicon Valley. If I had grown up in Cleveland, it probably would never have happened. The opportunity wouldn't have been there. So, you know, luck is a great part of it, and I'll take my share of it.
Welcome back to KPIG Radio. Joining us now is the head swine, Frank Caprista, and it says that on his card. I'm not being mean. Did you choose your own title?
Actually, I think Adam Nathanson, our old manager, titled me that. Yeah,
I'm sure
gave me
it
that name.
Gets attention.
Well, everybody gets tickled when they read it, for sure.
Now, speaking of things that will tickle your fancy, the KPIG name. How did you come up with KPIG? Why the porcine theme?
Well, Laura Hopper, who was the program director here and at KFAT, wanted to come up with something similar, and the KFAT call letters were already taken, so we requested the unused call letters from the FCC and then pick one out.
So KPIG was in the list?
KPIG was on the list, and we thought it was something that was similar to KFAT, and it was something people would always remember.
Oh yes, it's unforgettable. Like the music here. And let's talk a little bit about that music. Now, we've talked to a couple of the DJs about how you put it together and the sort of the combination and how that's worked out. But I know that you find a lot of music. A lot of this music is not played everywhere and not on regular charts. So tell me how you discovered this music.
Well, we get, 50 to 100 CDs a week, and we categorize them before we listen. And, the existing artists and people we know, of course, we listen to first. But, we try to listen to everything. And we always try to find diamonds in the rough. We try to find new artists and try to break new artists like Paul Thorne and Todd Snyder and people like that we were the first people to play.
And one of the artists that you helped get started was Bonnie Raitt.
We helped get started Bonnie Raitt back in the 70s when she was at KFAT. We had her, I think we were playing her blues music then, and she was at the Catalyst, and there was like 100 people, and it was a great show, but nobody came. And then a couple of years later, of course, she was selling out venues everywhere. Yeah.
So that must be a really wonderful validation to know that you chose the right one, and it was, and now you've opened the door.
Oh yeah, she's great, and she always has, and she always remembers that we played her music, and that's really nice.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us in to hear the music. We've really enjoyed our morning here.
Well, thank you. You're always welcome.
Well, we'll be back in a minute with Eileen, the traffic and weather queen. But first, John Gregg profiles one of the most unusual architects ever.
Roebling designed the Brooklyn Bridge, and Eiffel built his tower in Paris. Weaver of Rohnert Park? Well, Scott Weaver built the city of San Francisco using toothpicks.
I told myself, someday I'm going to make a toothpick hat like...
To say Scott Weaver is just a toothpick guy is to describe Rodin as just a stonemason. Weaver is an artist. The king of whimsy, perhaps, but a talented artist nonetheless.
I've always loved to create since I was a kid, making things out of cardboard, toothpicks, drawing, therapeutic. It started when I was a little kid, just having time to myself, build things.
What kind of guy would spend the last 35 years recreating the city of San Francisco with just good old-fashioned toothpicks? Well, here's a clue. He was born on February the 29th, which makes Weaver a leap year baby. And that also makes him about 12 and a half years old.
I started at 14, say. It's 35 to 36 years old now that I'm 50.
Yeah.
Born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. My great-grandfather came over from Italy in the 1880s. 5 generations of my family grew up there. So I spent many, many hours and days in San Francisco, and I've always loved the city.
So the question is, why toothpicks? The answer is, just like any other great artist, inspiration and romance.
I've got to tell you, Sue Rathbun, she was my 4th grade teacher, and she was a great-looking lady, and I would do whatever she asked. She had us build these little sculptures, and I went home, I wanted to impress her and build the biggest one in class. And I went home and worked and worked and worked and just made this big abstract sculpture. And then I thought of putting a ping pong ball in it. And then I altered toothpicks to form a pathway, and hence started to ping pong ball toothpick sculptures. And I don't think there's anyone else.
The quirky and capricious city of San Francisco is about 30 inches wide, 7 feet long, 9 feet tall, and it only took 100,000 toothpicks. The most fun is when you take one of the several tours using ping pong balls.
Okay, welcome to Rolling Through the Bay. This is a 9-foot toothpick structure. The ball starts here at the very top of the Coit Tower. The balls spiral down 10 times, and then they go behind the Rice-A-Roni cable car, San Francisco's treat. After doing that, they go by the Transamerica building. It has my face here looking up into it. They go through the Broadway tunnel, and from the old Cliff House, they're coming down Lombard Street here right now. Into the street sign that says Grant Avenue. They come down into the gateway to Chinatown, through Chinatown by the Dragon. They then go through the Palace of Fine Arts that has my heart that I left in San Francisco inside, pays toll at the toll booth, and goes across the Golden Gate Bridge. Going across the Golden Gate Bridge, you can look off and see Humphrey, the famous humpback whale, splashing goodbye to us, thanking us for getting them out of San Francisco Bay. The balls go behind Alcatraz Island, over the Maritime Museum here at Aquatic Park, ending in Flyshacker Pool, right next to Ghirardelli Square. And that's the main tour of Rolling Through the Bay.
Weaver guesstimates that he's put in over 3,000 hours on his architectural toothpick masterpiece. Great artists work in different mediums. Van Gogh and Gauguin work with oils, while Degas enjoyed pastels. Despite the inherent difficulty as a medium, Weaver prefers the subtlety and the elegance of Elmer's glue.
It does make a mess. It might look organized right now, but when you're working on it, I work off of different drafting tables, and it makes a mess. Piles of glue, clipped toothpicks that you could step on. And Elmer's glue takes a long time to dry, so I work on different projects at a time and then install them with other toothpicks.
The bigger question is what drives a guy to keep working on the city for 3.5 decades?
Some psychotherapists would have a field day, probably. I would have to say I love to make things that make people wonder why. You know, what are we here for? I never, in 35 years of building this thing, never thought of a dollar figure. I always built it to blow people's minds and or to make people think, what can be made out of toothpicks and Elmer's glue?
I left my heart in San Francisco.
So that's what it comes down to. The ultimate artistic expression, an existential question. The answer turns out to be profound joy. And Scott Weaver discovered it with just 100,000 toothpicks and a lot of Elmer's glue.
Well, it's time to say goodbye, but we can't leave without saying hello to Eileen, the traffic and weather queen. Thank you so much for
Nice to meet you.
Your signature hello. Now, we want to thank you, of course, for getting us over the hill every day. That is the special thing. The effort that you put in every morning into that is really wonderful.
My pleasure.
But the most fun thing you do is the World's Shortest Parade. Tell us about that.
4th of July weekend, we just get out there and march. We meet everyone behind the Wells Fargo Bank, hand out our rubber pig noses, and carry your boombox, and playing Happy Boy in the background on your boombox with your pig nose. And you're good to go.
Okay. Well, maybe one day you can enjoy that parade as well. For all of us at This Is Us, and for Eileen and everyone at KPIG, this is Becca King Reed saying so long.
This is us.